This is The Language of Business with Greg Stoller.
Would you go to your banker for legal advice? Probably not. But your attorney can be a great source of knowledge to get your venture's financing done. In fact, that's what Larry Gennari focuses on. Welcome to The Language of Business.
Thank you, Greg. I'm delighted to be here.
So why are attorneys suddenly in the financing business?
Some think that it's a new thing, that they're suddenly in the financing business. But as you and I both know, having taught together at Boston College, there's nothing new to this. Lawyers ought to be really an integral part of a financing team. And they ought to be part of the client's strategy for figuring out how to be successful.
If you had to sum up what you did in a phrase, what would it be?
I think, as you and I have talked about before, our job is to hear somebody's story and try to help make their dream come true. And that can vary widely. It could be product help, it can be advisory help, it can be connecting them to a financing source that makes sense for them. It could be just about anything, but it has to be focused on what the client really needs.
What's more important, legal terms or financial terms?
I think they're both critical. What's really important is having the client understand both.
How would you help your client decode the alphabet of finance choices?
I think the first and most important task for any lawyer is to help demystify the jargon, to help a client understand what everyone is talking about. Financing a company is a unique challenge, even for people who've had a career in finance or a career in marketing in a major corporation. This can be quite new. And so helping people understand the legal terms, the jargon, everything from what's dilution to founder shares to an IPO, anything like that, I think is and can be brand new to a client who's never done it before.
So early stage versus growth stage, how does the counsel differ?
The challenge for a lot of clients is that you can confuse jargon and personality and personal relationships with strategy. And for a lot of our clients, what really matters is how much do they need and what do they need it for. You start with that before you start with what your neighbor just did in terms of a term sheet or transaction, connecting to an old fraternity buddy who might be a venture capitalist. What really matters is how much do you need and what is your financing strategy to get there.
Does your counsel change as the deal size increases?
I think counsel should change, and counsel does change, as the company progresses through the different financing cycles. When a company is brand new and has no revenues, its needs are different than an existing company that needs financing or to think about what they should do to get to a next level. So I think it's more about company's stage of growth than it is about a particular financing transaction or stage of financing.
Does your counsel differ depending on the type of financing, VC, PE, or hedge?
Absolutely. Those are very different transactions, and they fit very different strategies. Every client who is trying to raise money really needs to think about how much they need and where it might come from. For example, if they need $10 or $15 million, that's typically going to be an institutional investor who might be a private equity or venture capital investor. 9 times out of 10, what they really need is a financing strategy. There are many clients that you and I see who will initially say, I need $15 million to make my dream come true. And what you need to do is help the client understand that they could do a lot with a lot less than that.
As you move to the second or third round of financing, does risk increase or decrease?
The question of risk really depends on whose perspective you're taking. For investors, if a company's ready for a second or third round of financing, there's less risk. Perhaps they're established, maybe they have revenues, they have customers, established relationships with strategic partners, more acceptance in the market, there's less risk. For the entrepreneur and the management team, there might be more risk, and the risk being meeting the expectations of that institutional client.
What's the number one mistake people make who have not sought a lawyer before they come to you?
Trying to do something themselves and to save money, and they think that what they're doing is efficient. I give you a couple of great examples. When people promise shares or equity or an interest in their company and don't quite understand what they're doing. All you have to do is watch the movie Social Network, and you'll get a pretty good sense of the perils of that. I also see people sometimes execute contracts or use other forms that they may have found on the internet or from a friend. And the challenge with those is that they may not fit the particular circumstance, in many cases don't fit this particular circumstance that is in front of the client at that time. As a result, they're going to pay a lawyer twice as much to fix it so that the foundation is solid as the company moves on.
Can most of those mistakes be undone?
Not all of them can be fixed. Once you've reached an agreement with someone, you may have to go back to them to get them to sign a new document. They may not be willing. I also see people make a lot of mistakes in the areas of securities law. When you offer or sell a piece of your business with the person's expectation being that they will profit from it, you've engaged in the sale of securities. Securities law is very complex. It's at both the federal and the state level. And a lot of people don't quite understand that you cannot just post your business plan online and ask investors to send you checks. Regardless of what you read about crowdfunding, it's a lot more complicated than that. And sometimes, when people have taken in money that way, that's a very difficult problem to fix.
But how do you respond to someone, the fraudulent transfer of assets notwithstanding, who says we're just going to shut it down, change the name, and start again?
That may or may not be an appropriate option. Depending on what promises they've made to people, continuing the same business, albeit with a different name, may not solve that problem at all.
Thank you, Larry. Larry Gennari, a partner at Gennari Aronson.
To learn more about decoding the alphabet of finance, go to languageofbusiness.biz.